You all ready over there? You all ready over here? All right, let's get rolling. We'll go ahead and open up City Council regular business meeting for Thursday, June 15th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Riva. Here. Cool.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here as well. We have a quorum, so we'll move on. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda?
I think I would. We gotta catch up though. I want to move the G.
G. Okay. Anybody else? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Rita, seconded by Livingston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item number 4 is a dedicated work session. So this session is for myself, City Council. Regular City Council meeting will begin following the work session. So tonight's topic is going to be UTVs and ATVs. This topic has been discussed a number of times in the past. Most of our past discussions have included both UTVs along with golf carts. Tonight, our focus is on UTVs only, no golf carts tonight. Chief Staples, I have a feeling you have put together some comprehensive information for us, and
I don't know if it's comprehensive, but it's a lot.
it's a lot. Okay, well, all right. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, so as the mayor said, I put together some history of what we're doing tonight. February 21st, we talked about it in council. That was a specific request by council to address whether or not the city could use use an ORV on the road. And the answer was yes, and according to city or state code 234A, which is on your desk. May 19th, we discussed it again because the county had authorized them on certain roads. August 15th, I met with policy admin council subgroup. And at each of those discussions, it was recommended or not. I was told not, I wasn't told to work on an ordinance, let's put it that way. On April 6th, several members of the community inside and outside the city attended the council meeting. About 10 or 12, 3 people spoke. 1 was a city resident, 2 were not. They were in favor of the city creating an ordinance to allow ORVs on the road based on the state allowing them in most of the state. Item 9 of the agenda that night, future council topics came and Councilman Kula asked for this discussion, and that's why we're here today. Goals today, I'll give you some information that I have gathered for tonight. We can discuss actions for Norwalk, and I would ask that I be given clear and final direction on what you would like to do as far as an ordinance in relation to ORV on city streets. I do not plan to talk about golf carts or low-speed vehicles. I put this in there just because I want everybody to know what we're talking about, what we're not. I do plan to talk about what I consider a UTV, utility task vehicle, or an off-road vehicle. I will say that pretty confidently, nowhere in the state code does it talk about a UTV. However, I'm going to tell you, I will slip up and use that term where I'm done talking to you. And when I say UTV, I'm talking about something like that green bit. If I say off-road vehicle or ORV, I'm talking about both of these things. I don't plan to talk about an ATV, or commonly referred to as a four-wheeler, from where I moved from. The problem is that the state code refers to all of these things as ATVs. And so if I say ATV, I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about the other two. However, the state code, when it says ATV, talks about all three of them. So it's confusing at best. I will try to use the term four-wheeler when I talk about this, if I talk about it. Okay. Previously, on April 6th, this map was shown to the council. It was prepared and presented to Luke by an ORV enthusiast who was here on the 6th. The map on the left is green dots where the city is considered friendly for the use of ORVs on city streets, and the red dots are where cities are considered unfriendly. The map on the right is a blow up of the metro area. And you can see that most of the metro has a red dot, meaning they're unfriendly for UTV riding. There I said it, UTV, ORV riding. Cumming is listed as a green dot. The live map, if you click on the Cumming green dot, it takes you to a side window which has Cumming code in it. So I clicked on that. And the Cumming code is written almost exactly the same as the Norwalk code. And after discussing the matter with city attorney this afternoon, we don't believe that Cumming authorized ORVs on city streets. We also spoke, I asked Luke to speak to the city manager and a council member in Cumming, and both of those individuals did not seem to indicate that council had taken specific action to authorize them on city streets. So I can't vouch for the accuracy of the map, but the map was provided for us. It was used on the 6th, so I wanted to present it again today. We don't really need to talk about this. I put this slide in before I really got going, but the code talks about primary highways, secondary roads, city streets, and divided highways. But it doesn't define that. The code doesn't define what a primary highway is. The state code defines a highway as the area in between the property lines where vehicles can move, something to that effect. But it doesn't tell you what the difference between a secondary road and a primary highway is. So it's kind of left up to interpretation. I put the Iowa codes pertinent to tonight on each of your desks. They're, as you can see, they're lengthy. They're more of the information than I wanted to put up on the screen. So I kind of cut out what I thought was most important, but I didn't want to leave it all out. That's why I printed it and put it on your desk. 321.10 establishes that you can ride an ATV, or I said it, ATV, ORV, on two-lane primary highway that's not part of the interstate road system over the most direct and accessible route between any of the following locations. One of those is a city street where such vehicles are authorized to operate. The city has not authorized the operation of an ORV on a city street, therefore they're not allowed to be used. That's where our city code, which we'll get to 2 slides from now, draws its power, for lack of a better word. 321 I-10 also says at what I have at the bottom, the city may regulate the operation of a registered all-terrain vehicle. That's the state using the term all-terrain vehicle to talk about off-road vehicles in general. And designate streets under the jurisdiction where they can be used. State Code 234A gives the criteria on how and when an ORV can be used on state roads and limits speed, limits the driver to 18 years of age with a driver's license. It allows the regulation, so the city could, if they wanted to, create an ordinance that restricted the use between sunrise and sunset, and has done that. 324A is the code that allows the city to use a city-owned ORV for city purposes to maintain the road or maintain the land adjacent to the road. It might allow the school to do the same thing, and in theory, it would allow Lakewood Association, if that was a political subdivision, to use it to maintain the drive from the office to the park to maintain the park. I think beachfront. Okay, that's 324A, and 75.05 is the city code, which does not allow the use of an ORV on the road. Interestingly enough, 7505 is the city code number for Indianola, Cumming, Martinsdale, Norwalk. Almost everybody has 75.05 that talks about ORVs on city streets. And most of them have the same wording as Norwalk's that say you can operate them in conjunction under the authority of 234A, or if the city authorizes them in certain areas. Those are the three code sections that are pertinent to tonight. Any questions on those? Okay. So I was asked by one of the council members to, we're not there yet. So some general thoughts based on the codes. The city can regulate the use of ORVs on city streets. We are authorized to do pretty much anything we want. We can authorize the time of day, speed, certain streets, safety equipment, regulate the noise and various other things. We can regulate the type of ORV on the road. If we don't want a four-wheeler authorized on the road, the city can make that part of the code that define a four-wheeler, say that's not authorized. Describe an ORV, what that is, and say that is authorized. We can do that. We can regulate noise, the mufflers, but I'll tell you that's hard to enforce. And after speaking with Luke this morning at length about this, it appears that the city does not have the authority to authorize the use of an ORV on Highway 28 north of North Avenue, because that portion of Highway 28 is more than 2 lanes. We look back on, I believe it's 321 I-10, it says primary 2-lane, primary non-divided primary highway. So Highway 28 in 4 lanes would make it not accessible by an ORV, I think.
Cherry
Cherry Street would be a 2-lane divided, so I don't, I
Or it's
thought,
1.5.
yeah. I will tell you, the codes are confusing at best, and I hope I've got it figured out.
But that is a city street.
But it's a city street. Yeah.
Right.
General other thoughts,
Greg, just a
Yeah.
second. Can you go back to the previous one? The second bullet you have there is speed.
correct. So the,
Could we allow them to go faster than 35?
no. I have a slide that says that later.
Which you can require them to go slow.
Oh, yes, yeah. We can't make a law that's more restrictive than state code, therefore we couldn't authorize them to travel faster than 35. And we can't authorize them to drive on a divided road more than 2 lanes. All right. Pros to allowing ORV use on city street. I was asked by Councilman Cool to do a pro and con discussion, so I thought that was a good idea. And here we go. So this is my thoughts on what the pros and the cons are of allowing them, with the discussions with various other people as I put this together. Joyriding them around town might be fun. We might achieve some resident satisfaction, improve the livability or quality of life for the people who are driving them, because they want to do that. We might increase convenience for residents who want to move around town because they can use an ORV instead of a car or walk. or bike. We might increase businesses at local stores. That was a pro presented on April 6th. If the people who come to town would do so more frequently on their ORV than they already do by car. It would allow a city resident to drive out of the city into the county. We could more definitively codify government use on city streets. 234A authorizes that, but we could make it more specific. And I believe we could make an ordinance allowing it for use on snow removal by citizens at their residence, so they can turn around in the street. Some cons to allowing an ORV on city streets are joyriding might be irritating to non-riders. It might cause some resident dissatisfaction and decrease the livability or quality of life for residents not driving them. It might decrease inconvenience for residents to move around town because an ORV is limited by state law, 35-mile-an-hour max speed. The next bullet would tell you that we have roads that have speeds greater than 35 miles an hour. And so allowing them in a 45 or 55-mile-an-hour road, but restricting their speed to 35 might irritate some drivers. And their use on paved roads is not recommended by several entities, including trade associations, manufacturers of the machines themselves, and health organizations. The next several slides are that bullet point specifically. The Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association has 10 tips for safe riding. Tip 2 is to avoid paved surfaces because they're designed to be operated off-highway. The Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association has model legislation about authorizing the use of ORVs on city roads, and sentence underneath of that is part of their model legislation where it says they should not be operated on the street, road, or highway. The University of Iowa Steed Family Children's Hospital has safety has a list of safety bullet points for ATVs, and it says don't ride on roads, and they're built for off-road use because they have a high center of gravity and they can roll over easily. The tires aren't designed to grip on the street. That sort of thing. The Specialty Vehicle Institute of America has a position paper concerning on-road use, and they don't think it's a good idea. Say they're designed, manufactured, and sold for off-road use only. And they say that because they're not designed like a car with anti-lock brakes, airbags, and that sort of thing. They also Aspirus Health is a health system in Wisconsin, and they have a similar safety paper on use on the road, use for ATVs, and they don't suggest that you do it. The Polaris Ranger 1000 owner's manual, that picture is of a Polaris Ranger 1000, similar to the green one we had at the beginning of this discussion. And the owner's manual says to avoid operating on public roads, paved or otherwise. And while it may be legal, it's recommended that you avoid on-road operations. Some final thoughts. Indianola has a code that authorizes their use. They limit that speed to 35 miles an hour. If we did that in Norwalk, Indianola's code was suggested to me by one of the people who spoke last time as something that we should model. They have a 35-mile-an-hour cap. Their code says you can't drive the vehicle on a street that has a speed limit higher than 35 miles an hour. If we followed that code at the recommendation of an ORV enthusiast, we would make it so that you could not leave town or enter town on an ORV, because all of our streets entering and exiting town have a speed limit higher than 35 miles an hour. 2 different sessions. I informally talked to 9 different police officers. 8 of which were city residents, about what they thought about a ORV ordinance allowing their use. 2 were in favor and 7 were opposed or had no opinion. Mayor and I talked to 7 of those 9 last night. If you look back on the map with the red and green dots, the metro cities as a group appear to be opposed. I can tell you, admittedly, I did not check with every red dot, nor did I check with every green dot to see if the map was accurate. I do know that 5, West Des Moines, Johnston, Alpena, and Des Moines do not allow their use, and they were red dots. But again, I did not check every city. As we just saw, trade associations and others don't recommend that they be used for on pavement. And that's about all I have to say, and I'm happy to do whatever council tells me to do at this point. Questions?
Thank you, Chief. That was a very complete briefing and summary.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
So I'm curious, we'll just start on this slide. 7 opposed or having no opinion. I have to say, Chief, I haven't done my research on this. This presentation is, I don't know how comprehensive, but in my opinion, very slanted against. And 7 opposed or having no opinion. Opposed and having no opinion are two very different things to me. And you
I do-
grouping those together, again, is indication that this is a very slanted towards, we shouldn't do it. You have said in the past, I believe, that you're not in favor of it. I understand that. I respect it. And I don't know that there's any positive information out there, but I don't see any positive information in this. And so I'm
So
a little disappointed.
I will comment on, starting with 7 opposed or having no opinion. The Mayor was with me when we had this conversation, and I can say that probably 3 were opposed, 3 were not in favor, not opposed, kind of participate in the conversation, but didn't really have any serious input. So I couldn't characterize it more specifically than that, but I don't disagree with you that grouping those 2 together doesn't do it as the justice that it should. And admittedly, I don't know how better to describe it.
Well, you
Right.
just described it.
Uh,
3 were opposed and 3 expressed no opinion. That's what you just said. So again, I don't want to split hairs. I appreciate the information that you have given. I find it to be very slanted towards
So,
no.
and I don't disagree that the information in the PowerPoint has more information about why it's not a good idea. I don't disagree with that, and I told Luke that this morning. And I told him that I have spent the last 2.5 months since April 6th thinking about what I was going to say tonight and trying to figure out a way to provide all the information I could find in a manner that was not slanted either way. And honestly, I can't find a lot of information on why it's a good idea, other than the fact that the people who want to do this want to do it because they have fun doing it. I can't find anything else.
You know, I heard your presentation as a fact-based presentation. You're citing specific facts. Right? I didn't hear a lot of opinion. But, you know, people have different opinions, I guess, about what they hear.
If they're, they basically say not to be used on concrete or pavement. But I guess people want to do that anyway, just be on the street or whatever else, right? And so they can't go down Highway 28 at all. So if you were going to do it in Norwalk, you would just have to go through residential areas everywhere to get wherever you're going.
If we follow the ordinance the way Indianola wrote theirs, was suggested to me. They do not allow an ORV on a street with a speed limit higher than 35.
And do we have any streets in the heart of the city? I understand, Beardsley as you go out, G14 going south and all that, they all hit 55 eventually.
The only 55-mile-an-hour street we have in town now is Highway 28, the extreme north end,
Yeah,
and that's the south end.
and do we have any above 35?
Yes, Gorilla Road is 45
Yeah,
before you get to the cemetery. As you go north, Beardsley is 45, R57 is 55 as you enter town. Highway 28, G14 is 45 out from the limits. County Line Road, our side of it, I'm not sure. I think it's 45, but I don't know. It might be 35.
my other question, it said insurance. I would think that anybody that drives one of these would absolutely have to have basically the equivalent of an auto insurance. They can hit and cause just as much or more damage.
I researched that and honestly, I couldn't figure it out, but couldn't figure it out specifically, but I came to the conclusion because 234A says that the ORV on pavement or on street use has to have insurance that meets, and it lists the code, the 321 traffic code that has insurance, meet the requirements of the insurance code. So I clicked on that, and then it was a lot of information that made me glad that I'm not an insurance agent. And I assumed that meant it needed to be like a car.
Yeah, I would think the minimum. After minimum.
Questions, you guys have? Comments?
Do we have any more information from, it is very clear and obvious that the center metro is not.
I will say that Ankeny, I don't have independent verification of it. I apologize. Ankeny is apparently considering a trial period. Golf carts for sure, but potentially ORVs. I've been told ORVs, but I don't know that independently for sure.
So I truly don't have a strong opinion either way, other than for the better part of 2 or more years, there has been a strong and consistent contingency of our citizenry that have asked for the option of being able to drive their UTVs from their residence to whatever rural property that they have. I am significantly troubled, and this isn't a Norwalk issue, this is a state legislation issue, that I can drive on Beardsley West and I have to avoid 21-mile-an-hour bicycle on the road, even though there's a bike path, but I cannot have the option to slow behind a 35-mile-an-hour UTV. I know, God forbid I mentioned golf carts, but the inconsistency or complete lack of enforcement of golf carts in this city, I have to navigate around those, but I can't be allowed to navigate around UTVs, which are licensed with lights and turn signals and seatbelts. It seems wildly inconsistent and unfair. And I would love to get rid of bicycles on the road altogether. And I'm a biker.
The bicycle lobby is bigger.
Tell me about it. Right? Which is not comforting to me at all.
I know,
right? 'Cause
it's
if you
the
have the
truth.
money
It's
to
terrible.
lobby,
I agree.
right? Y'all go out and get a big job. So you have the money to lobby this stuff so you can change the rules.
Yeah.
Very offensive. Not you.
I
The
agree,
concept.
I agree with you.
Can't believe anybody would criticize the state legislature.
It's not funny matter to me.
But But there isn't a way out of town without violating state law.
Or a way into town.
No,
And there's no way into town without violating state law.
I don't believe that to be true, right? It doesn't say you can't operate on a road that's 45 miles an hour. It just says you can't go faster than 35.
That's true.
Okay.
I'm just saying that if
We
we
did like
followed
it.
the Indianola model, we would restrict.
Then
the
we would
use.
restrict. Okay.
So basically, chief, if I'm understanding this correctly, if we followed that, then the only streets that would be available to run those on would be basically in our residential area, right?
Yes, sir, minus the interior sections of Beardsley and
Yeah.
North Avenue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we followed those same restrictions, it would be, well, we wouldn't have a way for them to get in and out of town. They could just run around residential area.
Correct. We don't have to follow that model. That model was just presented to me as something that we should consider.
Okay.
Are there any requirements like helmets? Any of that mentioned?
234A does not, in my current knowledge, require helmets. But 234A does a great job of referring to multiple other traffic codes. So I don't believe the state requires a helmet.
It doesn't require a helmet on motorcycles. There's no reason to think that it would require a helmet on a UTV,
I agree with that.
right? I mean, again,
I don't have either one.
No, and I appreciate what you're saying, but
But
they
I-
require seatbelts. Motorcycles don't require seatbelts.
the ORVs by state code 234A are required to have seatbelts.
We could, in theory, write the ordinance to say that you have to go from point A to point B, which may include stopping at a gas station. We could write the ordinance to say you cannot joyride through the streets, the residential streets of Norwalk, unless you are going directly from point A to point B, which requires you to travel on a residential street in Norwalk. I mean, there are restrictions that we
So-
can, however it's
Then you're doing
properly
intent.
worded.
I want,
Trying
I,
to read into
I
stuff
wanted
that-
to.
It's the same as a driver's permit. Same enforcement as a
school
driver,
permit
school
is
permit,
way
same
different.
enforcement. It's the same enforcement. But
If
these people are already licensed.
the city wants to authorize their use, the city can restrict it pretty much as we want. Or as little as we want, as long as it's not less restricted than the state. So I think we could require some sort of helmet thing. I don't know that we want to, but I think
I
we
just
should.
was curious.
Sure, you can require a helmet. Not quite sure whether it's already, it might already be required. I'd have to research it.
Can we differentiate the four-wheelers? I mean, those are really crazy up pavement. I would like to differentiate. I thought you said we could differentiate if we had.
We could, yes. Which is why I separated them in the picture.
Yeah.
Right.
You basically have, the city council can restrict it as much as you want, because right now it's not allowed, and the only thing that could be allowed is the exceptions that you would make to those rules, so. You know, certainly if you wanted helmets, if you wanted, I would expect helmets, I would expect, licenses.
Are these vehicles ever inspected as far as roadworthiness? I mean, I've seen some cars that aren't roadworthy.
234A gives the authority for the police to stop a ORV on the road for inspection purposes at any time. That could be part of our code. And the officer could stop the RV on the street to make sure that it had seatbelts and turn signals and a horn and a muffler and the license, and the driver was 18 and licensed, and they have insurance.
Are you sure you want to be the one to unleash this on the residential areas?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I mean, because that's
Yes,
basically
I
the
am
only
sure.
place they can drive.
Again.
They're
it's-
usually noisier than a car,
Uh,
typically.
Well,
True or false?
that's not my experience, first of all.
Okay.
And second of all,
Not necessarily noisier than motors.
right, there's several other kinds of
That's for
vehicles
sure.
that we don't regulate that are much noisier. But to answer your question, my goal is to not have them used as a substitute for a car or other means of transportation within the city. Where I, for instance, ride my UTV up to the ball game or ride my that's not my goal. My goal is to let the residents who have them be able to get from their residence in town to their rural property, or to be able to put a snow plow on it and plow their driveway. Not the whole neighborhood because they're nice guys, but
But it's
their
hard to
driveway.
police intent.
Everything's hard to police, Brian.
But either they're
This-
legal on the road.
It's hard to police, but we have a speed limit. That
No,
most
that's
people.
quite easy to
not.
do.
No,
But
it's not.
But when you're talking about, you can drive the vehicle or you can't. That's what we're getting to. Oh, no, and it's only okay if you drive the vehicle to point A to point B.
But why?
But if
can't
I'm
we
just driving
give
it-
Them a chance to establish that they're gonna do it right.
Well, I want to avoid the must be point A to point B or the intent of, well, what if I'm just going up to get an ice cream?
Walk, ride a bike, get in your car.
No, I want to take the UTV.
Take
or
your
ATV,
convertible.
Whatever. Whatever initials it is.
So. From what I've read, counties have the authority to limit usage on county roads. Is that correct? Or has that changed?
They can for temporary period of time. For various reasons, but I think it says you can't do it for more than a 30-day time period.
Okay,
Yeah, no, basically, the recent legislation that came out last year that caused so much excitement, basically forced counties to allow or allowed it on county roads. With,
matter what.
with certain restrictions, no matter what.
okay.
But that law also said that the same laws could apply within a city, but a city has to authorize it. So counties can't do anything about it right now. Cities still requires a city's authorization for it to be operated within a city.
To that end, I have one thing to say.
Okay.
Fireworks. Remember what happened with fireworks?
I know, it's gonna get there.
I'm just saying, why don't we
It's-
have some control while we can? Instead of force the issue to the legislature for them to say, you guys can do whatever you want.
Gonna go there anyway, so.
Okay, well, I have a couple of thoughts.
Yes,
I don't agree with them being used on neighborhood streets. There's one that is used in our neighborhood illegally a lot. It is loud. It is going faster than our speed limit. I think if I were to own a vehicle like this and I was on the city street and I was pulled over and said, I'm not supposed to be driving on the city street, I would say I'm going to the gas station. Because if we say that's where you're allowed to go,
Like
then.
every student on a student permit does.
Yes.
yes.
Yes. I have had a personal run-in, almost literally, the guy almost T-boned me. Coming down G14, came up, pulled a U-turn in front of us and ran us into the ditch. And that did it for me. I'm done. And then I watched the dog fall out of his ATV and he ran up in his building. That was traumatizing enough. And I don't want to see that again. I just, if somebody, in my opinion, owns a UTV or an ATV, they bought it and brought it into this community knowing full well that they are not permitted to drive it in the community. So they probably brought it in a trailer and probably have some provision for transporting it where they can transport it to be able to legally ride it. So I think that, you know, they knew it coming in, and I don't know why we should change.
Please, I asked for this discussion because I thought that, you know, we owe it to the residents. They made a pretty thorough presentation, or a strong one, you know, a few would feel. And so I think people deserve to be heard. And I have stayed open-minded on this, to be honest about it. And I've heard a lot of pros and cons between sessions from different people, right? But I think for me, I got to admit, when the chief said that the manufacturer recommends that you not do it, I mean, that tells me something, right? And and it's no offense against anybody, but I'm thinking to myself, how smart would I seem if I said, I don't care what the people that make this say, we should do it anyway. Right? I mean, somehow that just doesn't sound right to me, okay? I have sympathy for the people that own them, and I understand what they want to do, and I know a lot of these people, all of us do, right? No problem there. But we also have a responsibility for the people of the community and for safety. Right? And that is really what more controls my decision in this, Mayor. And I can appreciate, having been in the chief's position before, that sometimes legislative bodies, state and local, try to be real constructive on their ordinances to try to, I don't know, you know, help people or be nice or whatever, right? And you end up with a real sandwich that there's no way you're gonna eat. I mean, how do you enforce this, you know? So to me, it's more like a light switch decision. Either you do it or you don't do it, right? And if the manufacturer says don't do it, I'm sorry, I can't bring myself to do it. I apologize, but that's my thinking. There's nothing against anybody, okay? That's where I'm at. I don't know how everybody else feels about it or what their opinions are.
David, you got any thoughts?
Well, I'm on board with Jackie on this. I think it's as much as you say the manufacturer says don't operate them on it. I think there's qualifiers. If the chief had gone in there and given us the whole manual on the item, I don't think it says don't use it on cement ever. It says you should not regularly use it on cement, because they're not designed. Most of them are not designed for cement. Not all of them are not designed that way. So saying that this is what this one is, and therefore they're all shouldn't be used on cement, I disagree with that statement.
David, it does say, crossing the road with due care is, something they would recommend. So yes, on the road, with due care to cross it, to get from one off-road side to the other is, in the owner's manual, is something that is recommended to do.
And so, you know, I'm on board with them being used in the city from the standpoint of they can go to the car wash and be washed. They can ride them from their house to the car wash to be washed. They can ride them from their house to the gas station to fill up. I agree. Most of them probably have trailers, but at the same time, it's not always convenient to throw it on and off a trailer when you need to do stuff with it or fill it up with gas or wash it. So I guess from my standpoint, I'm good with getting them in and using them and limiting the use. But as far as enforcement goes, you pull them over. I mean, it's no different than a car. And if the person is driving it wild up and down your road, Stephanie, they're breaking the law to begin with if they're going over 25 and should get pulled over. I mean, I don't know any better way. Giving us examples of people that are breaking the law already is not, in my opinion, a good reason to not allow something, because there are people that drive cars that are louder than these things. I've been on them. I've ridden on them. I guess I don't have. I refereed soccer in a lot of small towns this spring, and I was around. They were there all over. You know, they were driven around town a lot in those places, and most of the time they're being driven at 20 or 25 miles an hour, and it's not a problem. I guess I struggle with using the examples of people that are currently breaking the law as the reason we shouldn't allow people who don't want to break the law to do it. I mean, the people that are wanting to do it are the ones that are asking us to make it legal so they can do it legally, because they don't want to break the law. And I guess the ones that are going to break the law are going to break the law regardless of whether we have the law on the books or not. I guess, and that just gets down to the police need to enforce it. And if it's a problem, then you as a citizen need to make the complaint to the police department and file the complaint and deal with it that way. Because I guess I'm struggling with saying, you know, the examples that we were using against it are not good examples, in my opinion, when it comes to this. It's just, it seems crazy that we would use bad examples. You know, it'd be like saying, hey, accountants, these Enron accountants were so bad and look at what they did and da 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 da. So now we're going to make every accountant seem bad and we're not going to let you do what you need to do. I mean, that's what happens. We legislate to the bad stuff and we need to quit doing that. And we need to actually legislate to what works. And I guess in my mind at this point, we should be doing something to allow them to go to the gas station, go to the car wash, leave town, go do their thing on the country roads and the properties. But isolating them and saying they can't use them in town is kind of asinine, in my opinion.
You're kind of making an argument to remove our fireworks ordinance. Because we
Golf carts, you can't talk about.
because our fireworks ordinance is to stop those who are illegally using it. Why not let those who want to legally use them, use them?
That's another work session.
That would be another work session. I shouldn't have gone there maybe, but
You know, the problem with, you know, our city, okay, we can use it in the city like David was mentioning. The problem is they can't use it on the main road that goes all the way through the city and connects our city. It's almost impossible to get anywhere. You have to go all the way out and around everywhere to try to get anywhere. If you're going to avoid, and we have no choice in that, correct, on Highway 28, they cannot be operated on Highway 28, correct?
north of North Ave.
That's the way Luke and I
Okay,
read the code this morning.
I mean, basically,
I'm not saying that we're correct, but
yeah,
that's
the only
we
way I
think.
could think of is, okay, Lakewood, they have to go up and around, you know, through Legacy to get to Fairway, down High Street. I mean, it just, our city's not built for it. Probably the same reason Carlisle does, because Highway 65 comes right through there. There's really no way to traverse. You know, they got the main streets, Altoona. Probably there's a good reason why there's so many red dots.
So what I would ask is, if you want chief to create an ordinance, when we get to item number 9, which is future agenda items, make a motion to create the ordinance. And council can vote on that. And a no vote on that will be, let's not talk about that anymore.
Agreed, and I'm just, Robert's Rule of Orders. I thought that we had agreed that in our work session, we could by motion direct staff member to do something. I didn't think we had to wait till number 9. I thought we could just do it now.
If you want to do it,
I mean, I
sure,
think
if you want to do it
somebody
now, go ahead.
But
You're
why-
correct.
We'll end up in
Well,
another
we had-
discussion.
See, we added that other item, so I thought we put it there.
I know, I just think we'll have another discussion then. We may as well just decide now.
Okay,
So expecting that I know what the result's gonna be, I'm gonna move that we direct the chief or whomever to work on an ordinance.
all right. Do I got a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
No,
Reba,
No,
Cool,
No.
Livingston.
Yes,
All right, so motion fails,
and we're done.
no ordinance. All right, Chief, thank you for your presentation and all your work on it. Okay. Item number 5 is welcome guests and public comment. Thanks for being here to listen to the discussion and for the council meeting. At this point in time, we'll go ahead and open up dais for those who want to address council for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. And if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, we'll give you the time to do that now. Any takers? Down in here. That was nice. All right. Seeing nobody, we'll go ahead and move on. Item number 6 is proclamations. Parks and Rec Month. Parks and Rec gets a whole month, July 2023. Go ahead and look at that proclamation in the packet and we'll have it on social media soon. Item number 7. Consent agenda. That's a long one. Expenditures, we have tax abatements. We have the June 1st, 2023 minutes of the regular city council meeting. We have a June 8th, 2023 minutes of the special city council meeting. We have cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, and vapor permit applications for fiscal year 2024. We have block party application at East 19th and Swan Court, July 1st, 2023. We have a special event application for Party in the Park, July 4th, 2023 at City Park, 907 North Avenue. We have resolution approving payment of retainage to I-80 Concrete for 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project. Excuse me. Got a resolution to approve pay estimate number 13 to Sternquist Construction for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 North Avenue intersection project. We have a resolution setting July 6th, 2023 for a public hearing regarding a zoning amendment to change part of 3.5 acres east of Sunset Drive and north of Chatham Avenue from R4 to C2. We have a resolution approving the appointment of Douglas Smith to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. We have resolutions approving pay estimates for the Norwalk Fieldhouse project, and there's several of those there, 7 of them there. I'll let you read those. We have resolution approving starting wage for newly hired Fire Lieutenant Christian Settle. Excuse me again. We have resolution to approve pay estimate number 3 to Elder Corporation for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 and Beardsley Street intersection improvement project. A resolution approving the replacement of water heaters for the public safety building. A resolution approving emergency medical services revenue write-offs. Resolution approving disposal of radio equipment for the fire department. Resolution approving disposal of computer equipment for the fire department. A resolution approving the purchase of a new Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicle. Have a new 5-day special class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service. Top it off liquid catering, Norwalk City Park, June 30th to July 4th, 2023. We have resolution approving engineering services for Sunset Drive and Chatham Avenue intersection improvements project. And we have monthly reports. Can I get a motion? Okay, motion by second. Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Lester,
You're
David?
still muted, David.
No, he's still there.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7G. It's a special event application for fireworks display for Polo on the Green, July 15th, 2023 at 7988 Adams Street. You requested to.
I did. So in the past, we have required that they notify their neighbors within a certain distance that they're going to do this. I want to make sure that that's part of the. I know every year they ask us to renew this. I want to make sure that every year that's a requirement, that they notify their neighbors. I can't remember how many yards or feet or whatever we said last time, so that those people can take whatever precautions they may or want to take with respect to animals.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm not opposed to it, but I would just like that added.
So you approve that with that addition.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
You probably find that in the last. Path.
Right.
Certainly 2 times ago that we
I don't-
passed it, but I don't recall that we did it last time. I just was
Yeah.
thinking about that today.
So how do we add that on and then make sure that it happens?
I don't know who approves the permit.
You do.
Okay, but who,
I contact the property.
you can contact, let them know that.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
I make the motion to approve with that.
Okay. Motion to approve as amended. Do I got a second? Okay, so motion by Livingston, second by Cool. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes,
All right, motion carries. Item 8. Old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is a public hearing on a proposed development agreement with Jensen Oswald LLC. We'll open up the hearing at 6:55 PM. So this public hearing is to get feedback from the public about utilizing tax increment financing to incentivize the Fairfield Inn and Suites to build a hotel in Norwalk Central. Holly, I'll let you drag this.
Yep, so we have been working through all of the proceedings leading up to this point since I think January when we started with the MOU. And then we went into the urban renewal area amendment proceedings and the development agreement amendment for Diligent to basically divert the tip from this parcel to the hotel developer. It's kind of an exciting moment if it gets approved, our first hotel, and this will fulfill about a little bit less than half of the required rooms that showed on our hotel market study. So obviously with our next hotel coming in, we'll get a little bit closer to that number that we need to have here in the next 2 to 5 years. So just a very good project. And if you have any questions on the numbers, the scope of the project or the incentive, I'm happy to go through those as well.
Questions from council or any public?
Motion? Oh, no, it's public
motion.
hearing, no motion, sorry. Why should I close the public hearing? Sorry.
No, not gonna take that one either. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this?
We have not.
Okay, Luke, I understand we held a URA urban rural renewal amendment consultation where other taxing entities were invited. Did you have attendance and input at that meeting?
Yes, we did have attendance. Jake Lowe with the school district attended. Jim also attended that. And he was more just there to gain the same information, understand what the basic terms were. And I think to ensure it's not residential based,
Yes.
of which we were able to confirm that. But other than that, there were no additional comments. Do you have anything to add on this?
No. We covered that well.
Awesome. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:57 PM. Item 8B is a resolution approving the development agreement with Jensen Oswald LLC, authorizing appropriation tax increment payments and pledging certain tax increment revenues to the payment of the agreement. So we just heard about this item in a public hearing. Holly, you got anything else?
I don't think so unless there's questions.
All right. Any questions, discussion from council?
I just want to say one thing. I'm going to be voting no, and it has nothing to do with the development agreement. It has to do more with that we're expanding the amount of TIF that's going to be made available and future tax dollars that aren't coming to the city going to one development. And I guess I'm just struggling with why we didn't lower the amount that the developer will.
Okay, you're kind of breaking up there.
I'm voting no from the point of not that I don't want the hotel or hotel development agreement to happen. It's the fact that TIF agreement was in place did not get lowered by the amount that we're putting in here.
Okay, so.
I think
So I think what he's saying is that the development agreement with Diligent didn't get lowered, the amount that we're going to give to the hotel. Is that correct, David?
I think that's what he's saying.
well, it would be though.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It would be though.
it could
It would.
potentially, the situation where it would be lowered is because Diligent is giving up this portion of value,
Right.
it's possible they will not get back their full 12 million of infrastructure within that 20-year increment, because this is a significant amount of value that would have helped them achieve their full rebate within that 20 years.
Right.
So they would have to create this additional value somewhere else on one of their other
Yeah,
parcels.
to offset it,
So it would equalize.
it would incentivize them to go out and do that. So they could get the
Right.
maximum out of the agreement.
But David is not incorrect that Diligent is, we're not lowering anything with Diligent.
Right, potentially the target's still there.
Right. You had something.
I do. This will come as no surprise to Holly or Luke. So from the beginning, when this package was structured, I said, to me, it's too rich. It's too much. We are giving too much away to the developer. I think it sets that precedent. I really want a hotel here. I want this hotel. I think it'd be great. But I mean, giving basically 50% of the assessed value. I mean, before that, I think our maximum was 20%. And it just, to me, there are too many dollars for an extended period of time. Our TIF agreements, they're getting to be more and more of a rebate for a longer and longer period of time. And to me, I don't think it's sustainable. It's definitely not sustainable if the state passes any more tax laws about what we can do for changing levies. Like I said, I don't have anything against the hotel. I think that this particular structure, it doesn't work for me on a numbers basis.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think if, I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, we're getting revenue here that we wouldn't otherwise get. You know, I mean, we're gonna have stuff coming in that otherwise we'd be growing weeds. And I think about the incentive that having the building go up is like a multiplier for the development of the rest of the area. You know what I'm saying? It would help us to stimulate other commercial development in that area. Plus, I like having a hotel around for when relatives come to visit. I think it's nice. But anyway, so I think for those reasons, there's a lot to be said for being able to get this one off the ground and get it in there. Right? I think it would contribute to the development of the rest of that area. We would likely see spin-off money from this. Maybe not from this project directly any more than what's in the agreement, but we'll see it, you know, on other properties. Those are my thoughts.
Any public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Steve Gelati with Road Contractors. I just have two questions. I'd like to know what the term of the rebate period is and what the amount of the rebate is.
I'll bring it up.
They have a, oh,
Thank you.
So the incentives are identified in those last three bullet points. And this is being done under the first in. Because our typical approach would be less than this. But because it's a first hotel, of which we had two coming in at once. So the concept coming forward to council previously was the reason that we were going above and beyond was because this was a first in incentive.
Yes. So I apologize. I can't read. This is very well. So
Tell you what,
is it 15 years? Is that right?
it's a 70% TIF rebate for up to 15 years with a maximum dollar of 2.34 million. And that's based on an agreed minimum assessment of $8 million. Also, 60% of the hotel motel rebate for up to 15 years with a maximum of 1.26 million. The total incentive package is 3.6 million for an $8 million minimum assessment.
Thank you.
But if the assessment comes in greater than that, the payoff would be sooner.
Correct.
Right.
And I think that this is, agree with that, this is a motivator. I don't mind rewarding the first investors, risk takers. This will greatly influence, I think, future businesses coming in. And as we've seen with the residential, we don't do anything to incentivize residential. And we're going to be able to taper back to commercial going forward because we are getting a good start, and it's due to these first trendsetters. And I don't mind rewarding them.
All right. Okay, they're not online, get a motion,
Motion.
Second.
motion by Livingston, seconded by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
No.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yeah, no,
Wait a minute.
First answer.
All right, motion carries. Item 8C is public hearing regarding the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements Project. So we'll open up the public hearing at 7:05 PM. So this lift station is going to be built near 80th Avenue and the trunk will force feed to the main at Beardsley. This hearing is for receiving the bids on the project. So Tony or Wayne, I'll let you drive this one. Tony?
Yep, I can take this. Thank you, Mayor. Tony Belizzi of Stern Kim, city engineer. Hello, everybody. Last Thursday, we took, city received bids, for the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvement Project. On June 8th at 2 PM, the city received a total of 8 bids, which was very positive. Very pleased to see that much interest in the project from a lot of reputable contractors that were qualified to do the work. So that was real positive. The bids ranged from our low bid from Progressive Structures LLC at a little over 1.3 million to Synergy Contracting LLC at over 1.9 million. So the average, our engineer's estimate of cost for the project was just a little over $1.5 million. The average of all those bids was a little higher at about 1.6 million. The low bid we received was about 176,000 underneath our estimate of cost. Progressive Structures has done work in the city of Norwalk. They actually did all the concrete work that you see out there at Elizabeth Holland Park. We've also done similar projects with them in other communities in Iowa. We believe they are qualified to do the work. Our recommendation in the resolutions you have before you after this public hearing would be to award contract to Progressive Structures LLC based on their bid of $1,344,099.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments?
We have not.
Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 7:07 PM. Item 8D is a resolution approving plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements Project. So we just had public hearing on this project. And this is the first of 3 resolutions needed to get the project launched. Council passed a resolution that approved the preliminary plan, specs, form of contract, and estimate for the project. This resolution is the final approval for all of those. Tony, you got anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, any discussion, questions, for council or public comment?
Motion.
Ooh. Motion from Livingston, second by Baker. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call roll?
Didn't hear anybody else. I'm like, apparently there was somebody else.
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
yes,
Baker.
Yes. Hey, I ought to give Baker one once in a while.
Item 8E is a resolution awarding contract for the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements Project. So this is the second of 3 resolutions needed to start this project. This resolution awards the contract to Progressive Structures LLC. Tony, anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right, any questions?
I got one thing, Mayor.
Yes.
On this bid, there was one sheet that was left out of the bid package that didn't meet specifications. It's a form required by Iowa Administrative Code 875-156-2. Engineer and city clerk asked me to review that to decide whether that makes this bid non-responsive to the point that we have to, basically reject the bid. I researched that matter and it's my opinion that the bid shouldn't be rejected just because of that. It was slightly non-responsive, but the laws in the state of Iowa basically say that you don't have to reject it if the error in the bidding or leaving out of this form, which was just basically an omission, we got that form right away afterwards, materially gave this party an advantage over other bidders to the point that the award of the bid would be unfair. And in my opinion, it's not, but I also want the council to know about that. Because the council could still certainly say, well, no, that form was included. What that form was basically a statement regarding whether they're a resident contractor or an out-of-state contractor.
Do we have it now?
Yes, we do have it.
Everything's complete.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Certainly appreciate hearing your opinion.
You bet. And I just wanted to discuss that just so we had it on the record that it was considered and council knew about that before award of the contract.
All right, any discussion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8F is resolution approving contract and bond for the Northeast Sewer Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements Project. So this is the third and final resolution needed to get this project rolling. This resolution approves the contract and indicates how the city is going to pay Progressive Structures for their work. Tony, anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, any discussion or questions, council? Public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Okay, then a second. Okay, motion by Baker, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8G. Resolution directing staff to request a memorandum of agreement from the U.S. Census Bureau for a special census. So Norwalk is growing at a pretty good clip. Once we reach 15,000 citizens, Norwalk becomes eligible for some additional funding. Also, if we've grown enough since the 2020 census, we'll get enough other monies that are allocated based on population to actually pay for the census and have more left over. So Gene, Luke, I'll let you take it.
I think you summarized it well. The dollars are laid out in the agenda statement that show the additional local option sales tax and potential additional road use tax dollars we would receive. Easily pay for the $400,000-ish bill to do a special census. That's a big number. However, like we said, it should take less than 2 years to offset those funds.
That's a fast payback.
Beyond just those costs, just one other detail to note that's in the staff report for council is the $400,000 cost is the census's cost to us. But then we are responsible for doing all the advertising for it to make sure we get good responses. And we have to provide some office space for the census workers within the city somewhere. So we think we can probably accommodate that within our own facilities. We won't have to find other space for them, but those are some additional costs that aren't part of that 400,000 that we would incur as part of that.
Is there anything to think about as far as the timing? You know, if we waited 1 year, would we? Everything is a payoff or a trade-off, but I'm just wondering. Timing.
The longer we wait, the longer it
Higher the
takes.
cost.
Well, potentially, but then that means a year we miss out on the additional revenues from road use tax and local option systems.
400,000.
Okay.
Yes. This,
Any other discussion? Or public comment?
Are we confident that we're at the 15,000 number?
I'm confident that we're above 15,000 by the time this special census takes place. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but
Yes.
yeah, I was gonna say, Luke.
I'm not into your on the Zoom. Yes, yeah, I would agree with what Luke said there. Also timing wise, this memorandum of agreement would kind of start the process. And then we will work with the census to kind of figure out when it could happen as early as, I think, January 24 is what they mentioned was kind of the first outs that they would do stuff. But if if we want to try to fudge that a little bit later for reasons that we think will definitely be above it, if we want to kind of go later into 24, there are ways that we can work that schedule better with them. So, yeah.
And David, some additional assurance, even if it does come in under 15,000, it just means that the payback takes longer than that 2-year time frame.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or public comment? I get a motion.
Second.
Put it over there. Motion by Cool, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes. Can I vote fine?
She can put an.
Fine means yes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8H is a resolution approving the 2080 agreement to provide fire and emergency services to Lynn Township. So we do provide fire and emergency services to the rural areas south of Norwalk, and 2080 provides for those services. Chief, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been here before, right? We're discussing our 20 agreement now. Lynn Township is currently, as of July 1, will be the only township that we service as we gave up lead. We had 25% of lead that will be given up July 1. There's no easy way to say this, right? They're at a max levy rate as set by state code at the 60 3/4 cents per thousand. We have looked at alternate means of revenue. I actually reached out to a board of supervisor today to get a better understanding of how the levies are structured in the townships. And they're really just tied to with their capabilities. Some examples of what they can levy for is cemetery, if they have a city clerk, if they had any wages, a building, equipment, that sort of thing. And then the fire levy again, which is capped at the 60 3/4 cents. I did ask if they could levy for equipment, would it be possible for them to levy for fire equipment to supplement our services? The board of supervisor that I spoke to today, she didn't believe that that was an option, but she said it was definitely worth looking into a little bit further. I did call the budget coordinator with the county. I was able to get in touch with them today. But I just wanted to be a little bit ahead of this one and transparent with you guys that I understand that this is not an equitable rate to what the citizens of Norwalk are paying. We included that in the 28E agreement. As we know from previous conversations, the townships are required to have fire protection, and this is where we're at today. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I want to add emphasis on one thing that she said. There is a formal statement in this 28E that clearly outlines that this is not an equitable
Right.
agreement. They are not paying equal to what the citizens of Norwalk pay, but they receive functionally the same service.
How many calls do we make to Lynn Township?
So about last year, we did 39 calls, which is 2.4% of our total call volume. The year prior is 51 calls, 3.4%. So just about 50 calls a year.
So how much money did we lose? I guess if you take their levy minus what the service, what it should be.
That would take.
We would
some
have to
per-
take-
that- Because those, I didn't also break those calls down to what is EMS, what was fire, you know what I mean? That would take some pretty deep calculations. I could get it, but I wouldn't be able to put a number to that right now.
Are most of them EMS calls?
I mean, just roughly in general, 80% of our call volume is 80% is EMS. Yes.
$2.10 per thousand. Is what
Subsidizing
we're subsidizing for Lynn County.
the Lynn Township, yeah.
Lynn
Township.
Lynn Township. I don't even know where Lynn Township is.
Okay, so the Lynn Township, I included a map. If you look at the 20E agreement, first of all, if you look under section 3 compensation, the second paragraph is what Luke was referencing, where it says that it should be noted that the total levy rate of 60 3/4 cents is not sufficient to cover services provided. Thus, emergency services in Lynn Township are being subsidized by the city of Norwalk and their taxpayers. Again, this is not unlike, not that it justifies it, but it is not unlike any other townships that are in the state currently because of the state legislature. The map at the very last page, you guys can color it. Yeah, so it is the township that is around the city of Norwalk and the city of Cumming. So anything that's not corporate city limits essentially is Lynn.
Then we have to respond.
Say again.
We have to respond.
Well, they have to secure services. So it's a very similar situation that we talked about with the city of Cumming, is they don't have to contract with us, but they have to contract with someone. But everybody around them are volunteer agencies. And so then we have the 20E agreements and with those mutually aided partners, just like we discussed with Cumming.
And I'm not sure how much detail you would want to go into. But we are continuing to research other opportunities, not just us. We're
Right.
talking with Indianola, Carlisle. We're talking with other areas of what other options are to make this more equitable.
Sure.
It's
We-
really a statewide problem.
It
in
is.
certain areas.
It is.
And the solution really with the legislature, I mean, my opinion, and I'll express this to our representative, but they need to have enabling legislation that would allow the creation of fire districts. So you could do equitable assessments throughout a service area.
Yeah.
That's what they really need to do. And, you know, there's just so many little kingdoms in Iowa, right? And nobody wants to give up their power. So we end up in a situation like this. So if what drives us is to have equitable agreements, which, I mean, that's what I want. I think that's what the council wants. But you also have to look at this and say, okay, how practical is that given this situation? Right? I mean, these people are like right up our doorstep. And if we say, well, go find your help somewhere else, go to North Warren or whatever. I've got hundreds, probably gonna be there anyway. Most of this is probably EMS. That's probably most part. And I've got to think that we could collect most of that
We are
off those
recouping,
services.
we are recouping, costs with EMS revenues, but as we know, like, EMS revenues don't necessarily keep the lights on. I think our EMS revenues are just shy of $500,000 and our overall budget is just over 2. So even with all of our service areas, it is offsetting costs, but it isn't paying for the service.
So do our EMS charges, do they vary by within the city or outside of the
They
city?
do not. They're one.
Is that something we should consider? Because we just did it for Cooks and Recreation.
We could consider that. However, there is some, there's a situation when it comes to your Medicaid patients that you
Right.
have to take an agreement that then you just write off everything out of that you have to in order to accept those funds.
Something else, Jackie just made a note to me, and I think this is good to bring up. North River runs roughly right here. And if you remember to if you look at our comprehensive plan, really a bulk of this yellow area minus what's northwest of Cumming, a bulk of this yellow area to some extent ends up in our future growth plan. So if there's a kind of a long range thought process to it, I'm not going to say the word annexation, but I just said it. That's a direction that the community is headed.
I didn't hear.
And I will also say, when I spoke with Board of Supervisor today, we've talked on and off with the other fire chiefs, board supervisors about EMS essential service, potential for levy for that. And that's still in the works, but I reminded her today that yes, EMS is an issue in the county, but this is an issue too, because all of the fire departments in the county that are servicing townships are tied to the 16.75, and it is not sufficient to provide services anywhere. And so I kind of brought that to her attention today, that while you're looking at things, I really think that we should look at this too, because nobody's able to conduct business on this amount of money.
Does the county, they can assess too for fire protection? Seems like I remember reading that in the state code. But the county.
Honestly, not sure about that. She didn't mention that today when I spoke to her, but we were talking specifically about the abilities within the townships. So, and she kind of
I
listed out
just
what they
wondered
have
if
the
there's-
ability to levy for.
I have seen agreements with townships in other counties where they provided equipment.
Equipment.
I have seen that.
Yeah,
So
like I said, I tried to
I'd
get
be
an answer on
surprised
it
if they
today.
couldn't do that, even though with all due respect to the county supervisor, maybe she hasn't researched that issue, because I've seen that happen.
And, you know, my point to her when I spoke to her today is that some of that equipment we are using primarily in the townships, in the rural, if we're talking about our grass trucks or our water tenders where there's no hydrant operations, you know, that is equipment that we're using there, not solely, but primarily. So I think if they could, if they have the ability to do that, I think that we could definitely justify that. Again, I just wasn't able to get that answer as we're coming up on these contracts reaching deadlines.
So these 28E agreements, they don't forestall any of that stuff, right? You could still pursue those kind of, I don't know, supplement in kind, whatever the right term is, right? This just says money, this is what we're doing money wise, but there's other.
I think
This is an agreement to provide services for the next 2 years. So our next opportunity, doesn't mean that we can't research, figure that all out and let the town, put townships on notice saying, okay, you got 2 years to figure this out. And in 2 years, you know, we should have at that point in time come to some sort of solution where the amount that you're paying for your services are equitable.
And this is I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
And this is a 2-year contract, but I mean, we could also terminate and renegotiate if we found that there was a different option for funding. We could terminate and rewrite this agreement. Right. If that's what you said, you're correct.
Well, we can't just give them notification.
There's a termination clause.
term in there, yeah.
Yeah.
The terms.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, then we could renegotiate at any time.
So I just wanted you guys to know that I am definitely looking for other funding options for the contracts that we're currently in. We just come up some of these, the roadblocks that are kind of beyond our control. So. Any other questions?
Any public comment?
Will we be getting an update on?
Yes. Should I give that now or?
It's not on the agenda, so we probably can't.
During
What?
staff update.
That would be good. That'd be good. All right, okay, thank you. Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba. Yes. Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8I. It's first reading of an ordinance providing for ambulance charges for private events and then for the city of Norwalk, Iowa by amending chapter 135 and chapter 177 of the Norwalk Code. So this ordinance adds fees for providing an ambulance to sit at a private event. I'll
Correct,
let you
yep.
take it.
And I presented this to council 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, just for direction on this. So now this is moving forward. This, to be clear, would be a dedicated ambulance, so this would not be already in our response plan. So we would staff this at a different level. It would be dedicated to the private events. The formula that I looked at for the per hour rate was we took a loaded employee, one of our highest paid employees, to include benefits, wages, all the deferred comp and those sort of items at the time-and-a-half rate. So we could assume at the highest rate, our highest paid employee would be at an overtime rate. Plus an hour of administrative time, which is me as a loaded employee, would take me time to schedule and invoice and those type of items. And then we looked at our depreciation plan of our ambulance and the large equipment that goes along with that. And that's kind of how we came to a per hour rate. I will say that we did research on other communities in the metro, and they're at $150 per hour. But I don't know how long those rates have been in place. So I thought this was a more accurate depiction of what it would cost us to staff that event.
We have a definition anywhere in our code of what a private event is.
Or do we call it private event or special event?
This is in this,
What's a
in the
private
code.
Private
it's
event.
And so I don't know what a private event is. Right? Are we talking about when you have to be at the school for football games or I just don't know. Or is it
City
I'm
attorney-
having a party or a concert? I don't know.
So city attorney and I kind of spoke about that, and it was gonna be like a special event or a private event would be something that we're being contracted to be at. So the school is a little bit different because we don't put a dedicated ambulance at the school. We're there. It's a community event that we feel like the bulk of our community is at for the evening. But if we have a fire or a medical call, then we do leave the school. We don't have a dedicated unit there. So this would be specific to us sending an ambulance and personnel dedicated to that event for the entirety of the event, essentially.
Okay, so it's, okay.
You want us to define it?
Well, I'm just thinking, right, what you say makes sense to me, but if the school decides they want to contract to have a dedicated ambulance there, then it becomes a private event. That's why I just, and so I just think it should include that
Okay.
explanation somehow.
Okay, we can work on that for the next reading, for definition, but really, private event would be anything where we got a third party requesting a dedicated ambulance.
Right, so,
It
great.
could be a public-
It can
it
say
could
that.
be a public
Yeah.
entity, it could be,
Yeah.
it could be a private entity, just basically, like we say, if someone requests a dedicated ambulance and we can provide it.
Yeah,
We
that
don't really
would be,
call it a special event because there's another code section that's called special event, which are more like the rag prize, the world.
Right.
More involved.
yeah, I just think that if we add that, again, second reading is fine, but adding that would. make
Okay.
me feel better.
Okay.
You know, kind of- Any other questions?
Any
I'll make a
public comment?
motion. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. You did it.
And we'll change that definition, but I think also, most likely at the next reading, we'll ask for a waiver of it because we're trying to get this in place for that polos on the green. And we would not have time to have three separate meetings for readings on it.
Okay, fine with me.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I got a motion by Livingston, a second by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Reba? Yes. Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes. I don't know.
Lester?
I don't know what I-
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. I'm getting tired. So I'm getting a little punchy. Item 8J, the final reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to chapter 175C.04 airport hazard height and noise mitigation overlay zoning regulations to update requirements for navigation easements. So we've had the airport here to discuss this zoning amendment for the noise mitigation overlay, and it's gone through planning and zoning. Luke, you got anything to add?
No, I do not.
All right, any questions, discussion from council or public comment? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the final reading? Motion by Livingston, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
All right, motion carries. Item 8K is final reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to establish the Dunn Property Planned Unit Development at 11.22 acres south of Delaware Street and west of Highway 28. So the Dunn property that we're talking about is to the south of Windsor Windows and Michael Foods. This project is actually part of the property we're pursuing for a state certified site. Benefit is that these developers move swiftly and they are ready to start development. So the request is to rezone lot 3 and outlot Y from M1 industrial to a planned unit development. PUD would retain the M1 uses, but modify bulk regulations. Luke, anything to add? Any discussion from council or public comment? Get a motion for the final reading?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. Item 8L, final reading of an ordinance amending chapter 177 rates and fees, providing for amended water, sewer, and solid waste charges. So we make adjustments to our water, sewer, and solid waste rates about this time, just about every year. New rates will be effective July 1st. You got anything to add? All right, any discussion or questions, comments from this council?
Motion.
All right, motion by Livingston. Do I got a second?
Second.
Seconded by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Item 9, future agenda items. So the purpose of this is for council to give direction to staff by way of motion, to have items placed on a future agenda. We don't discuss it, we just motion it. Any items for tonight?
Well, I do, I'm not sure. Now or when you do staff increase, but. So I'm gonna start with, I was at the Iowa County Attorneys Association conference this past week. While there, I talked to Doug Eichholz, who was very, very complimentary of our police force in the recent trial. I would like to have some recognition of those officers at our next, at a meeting.
We are going to do that at the next council. I already have that. Okay, yes, EMS testified as well at that trial, so we'll get them here as well.
Perfect.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on. Council inquiries and staff updates. Luke.
Well, first, I would like to introduce, in case some of you have not met, our new chamber director, Lauren Ebensteiner. Did I pronounce that right? I texted her and asked her if she has been introduced to council, and she said no. But if you do that, am I gonna have to speak publicly? And I lied and said, no, I'm just kidding. So I just wanted you all to meet her.
Thanks for staying to the.
Yeah, thanks for sitting through it.
This is my first one, guys.
It's exciting stuff.
It's perfect, yeah.
The other two items that I had, first of all, just a huge thank you to council for taking action, put the UTV thing to bed. No opinions on good or bad, have them or not. Thank you for making a decision. That is excellent. We appreciate it. The final thing I'll bring up is Westcom. You know that there's an audit, or as we all understood it to be an audit of some of the E911 funds through Polk County Sheriff's Office. I need to first clarify that it is not an audit. It is a financial procedures review, which is a few steps down from a full audit. You're smiling, maybe you know the difference. They have about another 2 to 4 weeks before they finalize that report and submit that. The Emergency Management Department for Polk County showed up at our last Westcom management meeting and give us a full update. It was very educational. So hopefully within the next month, we will have a more formal update on where those dollars are at that we were concerned with in our Westcom budget. There's any
Like $1 million, right?
it was about 900,000, yes, of dollars that showed up in one budget and didn't show up in the next. And a significant portion of that would be, I'm going to call it Westcom reserves.
Yeah.
So one year we were told we had, let's say, $600,000 in reserve. In the next year, we were told we had about $150,000 in reserve.
So if you add all the interest in from how long it's been, it's probably closer.
That could arguably say that, yes.
All right.
So we'll have a better answer within the next month.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Jack. All right.
It's gone now.
Okay, Lindsay,
Nothing, thank you.
if it comes back to you, let me know. Robin?
Just letting everyone know that we will have lots of events scheduled for July. They will be on our website and the city event calendar, so check those out. As far as the field house updates, all the concrete is poured. So for the field house building, the building is currently being constructed. I think Luke sent out pictures of that, so that's exciting. And they're working on utilities in the parking lot, and pavement is tentatively scheduled to begin July 10th for the parking lot north of the field house.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, it will.
So they're gonna pave the parking lot for that facility on the 10th.
Yeah, they hope. Yep,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else?
no,
Thanks. Gene.
Follow up Robin, lots of great stuff happening in the library too, so check that out. And we all are looking for a new trustee for the library. We had one who had to step down because her local business is very busy, so we're grateful for her service. But if you know anyone who would make a great library trustee, it'll be posted pretty soon.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Holly.
Obviously, I'm very happy about the hotel happening, so thank you. Just looking at some economic impact numbers, we're looking at about $11.5 million economic impact per hotel the first 5 years based on sales tax, property tax, and hotel motel tax. Even with the rebates removed from that, so it's pretty good return for us, even during that period. With our second hotel that's coming in pretty hot, doing good there, and they hopefully will get up within the next few months after the first one is constructed. The Fairfield will be, their plans are to start construction in July, so next month, and then they would be completed within 12 months from there. So that's the plan with them. So that's really good. Between the two hotels, we'll still be about 40 rooms short. So we're kind of looking at that third hotel, in the next couple of years to fulfill those needs, and it could continue to grow. As you've seen with the sports campus activity this last weekend, it was very busy. A little bit of concern with the residential street parking, but we've got a plan. We're handling it the best that we can for this interim period until the rest of the parking lots are constructed. But like Robin said, Jeff with DeNova told us that they plan to start construction of that north parking lot on July 10th, and that we could be able to use it by August. So that will alleviate a lot for the summer and fall tournaments and things. But so far they're doing really well out there. They're full, doing really good. So the other projects that are coming along, Fairway plans to be open by February, kind of same timing as our city facility should be open. So a lot of activity out in that area. Moving forward with the Michael Foods expansion, and we're looking at a couple of other industrial projects down there that might hopefully kind of move along some of our infrastructure projects that we're working on that will be needed here sooner than later. And with that, I'll just kind of stop there. Any other questions? I can keep going, but I won't.
All right. Dean.
Just been working with Robin and Luke and Jim and Lindsay, trying to get the DeNovo and Sportsplex pay apps and Sportsplex portion of their private facility all coordinated and paid. I think we're getting on a good path there, getting the pay apps and on time and getting those things paid. Still working on a financial strategy for funding the gap there as far as that project. And then we just got new numbers on the certified site. We got Holland Point numbers and Chatham and Sunset. And then Robin's got a project on Elm that's over. So we have some that are coming under, some are over. So we're just trying to figure out how to figure that all out. End of this month will be year end. We'll be wrapping up, and we'll get some numbers and reports to you soon after. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chief.
Wednesday, we had applicant testing for our opening. We finished 25 applicants. Some of them didn't respond to the testing emails. We had 8 show, 3 didn't pass. We got 13 applicants or 12 applicants. Very excited about a couple of them. None of them are Iowa certified. 2 of them are certified from out of state. We're going to interview on June 28th, and hope to hire somebody by 1st of August. We have a life event for youth scheduled on June 28th. I think we're playing Frisbee golf, but I'm not sure because it kind of changes depending on ideas that people generate. We are having our daily youth activities golf tournament Friday, June 30th. We need more teams. If you know of anybody, have them call Allie or Brad and sign up. The sports complex last weekend did not cause us much of a problem, us as the police department. There was traffic congested. There were 4 calls to the police department placed at or around the complex, excuse me, the campus. One was a theft of a purse with a firearm inside. When the officer got there, it turned out that the theft happened in Des Moines, and the lady decided to wait until she had time to report it to the police, and that thing happened while she was watching her son's baseball. So, we also have parking plates. 2 of the cars were moved before we got there, one was issued tape. Last night was Front Porch Norwalk. Thank you to everybody who attended. Great time for the mayor to go speak more about it, but it was really kind of cool. One of the events was doing exactly what it's supposed to do. I texted, emailed Judy Corcoran and said that her program's got legs. These were people that lived on Sawgrass and had events there with their neighbors. And then they moved from Sawgrass to Sunset Heights, and they had such a good time there. And they wanted to meet their neighbors in their new neighborhood that they organized their own event, and they invited everybody, and they were all showing up, introducing themselves, and it's kind of cool.
Very.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's all I have.
Chief.
So the coming update, I have been in contact with the city manager there, as has Luke. So we've spoken to them on a number of occasions. They continue to work on a resolve here. This isn't a matter of if they want to continue the contract, it's how do they fund it. So I was with city attorney earlier this week. It was just getting down to timing for them still not having a solution to be able to come to council today. So we did say that we would give them 2 more weeks until the first meeting in July. So I don't have any definitive answers today. Again, it is a funding issue that they're trying to secure what we are requesting. So that's what I have about coming. Any questions about coming? Okay. We participated in Front Porch Norwalk last night as well. We made 6 stops. We came in blowing our horns and lights and sirens and all the fun stuff. So we had a lot of fun. We had our interns with us. So we came with the big group and brought the party with us. We had a good time. We hired a new fire lieutenant. There's in the packet, Chris Settles. He is a 5-year part-time employee for us, and he'll be coming hopefully next council meeting to meet all of you. He starts with us on July 2nd. A few weeks ago, we had a 22-year-old cardiac arrest patient, and today she walked into the fire station.
Oh, yeah.
So that was
Good.
really neat for us to be able to come face to face with her, and she has been able to recover after the incident. And I think it's a reminder of why we do what we do. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Wayne.
There's only a handful of items left on this North Avenue project coming together. Unfortunately, the last few items are the highly visible ones. They have to do the signals, the striping, and the seating yet, the main items left. As staff, we will be coming forward and recommending charging the contractor liquidated damages that are way beyond their completion date. We'll be bringing forward a few options for liquidated damages on that project. But I'm happy that it's wrapping up. The Beardsley project, that project is going very well, and probably the next 2 to 4 weeks, they're going to switch over from the west side to the east side. And that's, if you recall, we're going to be shutting down from Marketplace Drive, or just east of the Get and Go entrance, shutting down Marketplace Drive intersection all the way over to near Fontana. So there'll be a detour to County Line Road, a detour to North Avenue, and probably we'll get some phone calls and stuff.
Brian seems super happy about that.
And we're gonna put something out about that
Yeah.
couple public service announcements.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm gonna drive a UTV.
I wondered if you were gonna comment.
Golf cart.
There's 2 private projects coming forward on Highway 28, utility installations and the DOT right of way, a mid-am gas project and a Newcom fiber project. Those are not city projects, but they'll be occurring in the right of way. You may see them out there. Metronet, if you remember them, they're a fiber company coming to town. We met with them last month, early in May. They're projecting end of July starting projects in town. So if you have residents asking for.
Where they're gonna start?
They did not indicate where they would start.
They're through my backyard.
Hey, Tom, if you go in and tell them that you're interested in it, they'll contact you and tell you when they're expected to be at your address.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I may have already done that, so
When are they going to be in your neighborhood?
they were estimating March of 24 around Main Street and Colonial. And then the side streets were June of 24.
Okay,
That's all I have. Thank you.
all right. Thank you. Tony?
Just one item, Mayor. We had our pre-construction conference this week for the Wright Road water main replacement project. Look for that work to start the first week in July, probably after the holiday. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I got a few things. I figured since I didn't get to talk much during the agenda, I would make up for it. Probably should have had this in our census item, but the 2022 census estimate for Norwalk was 14,177. And so the census estimates tend to skew a little conservative. And also that was about a year ago. So if you look at what their percent growth was from the actual 2020 census to their estimate, that would put us around 15,000 right now. So whenever they put out their next estimate, I'm sure it'll probably be beyond that. And so I feel pretty confident that our special census, when we get around to doing that, will be beyond that as well. Continue to work with contractors at Norwalk Central, trying to keep things all orderly and working well there with all the things we have going on. Diligent is working with those contractors as well to try and stage road closures of the Hughes and Chatham areas to construction so that they can get road striping painted. So there's been so much stuff going on out there. They've not been able to stripe the stuff, and that's kind of the last thing for them on their list before they can turn it over to us. And then we still have to wait on some stop signs, I believe, at Highway 28 before we'll say it's officially open for public traffic. We do also bring a waiver for you at the next council meeting to formally allow temp parking at the Norwalk Central area. We've kind of allowed them to start using that just to ease some of the residential parking traffic in the intermediary time frame. But we do want to formally put that in place. So it can go through planning commission. They can have any comments on it, and you all can as well. Taking some proactive steps on mowing maintenance to make sure that's done properly, particularly with some areas of new development on double fronted lots, trying to remind people that if you back up to the street, you also are responsible for that. And we notice there's some areas that are a little intermittent with that. And with having our full-time nuisance guy, we're able to start doing a little bit more of that proactive approach to things, not nuisancing anybody or doing abatement, just trying to do some friendly reminders and education to some people. And also working with some of our bigger projects as they approach their final inspections, make sure they understand what their full maintenance responsibilities are. And a lot of it tends to be when you're up against a rural road and people not going through the ditch and going up to the edge of the road in those situations. So we're trying to get that stuff identified ahead of time. I think we'll have about 1 to 2 LMI rehab projects coming forward soon. I also have a contract for engineering work for the North River sewer easement NRCS process at your July meeting. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, we just got a couple of slides, a couple charts up there. One of the things I wanted to run through was about 9 months ago, we increased our permit fees, and we also hired our second building inspector. So I want to do a little check-in and let you know how that's kind of been working out. On the fee side of things, in the past 9 months, we've collected $48,000 extra over what we would have if we hadn't increased those fees. So the idea there, that would kind of pay for and help pay for that staff member, that kind of did that. The interesting thing though is with our permit dollars, our permits slowing down, the total amount of money that we pulled in was less than we had hoped for, because we only did like 14 building permits in October, November, and December. So, but if we hadn't made that change, we'd be farther down the hole than we would be. Average, and so I started doing all this analysis trying to understand this stuff. And so I'll get to one of these charts here in a second. But what we did in this was we were trying to figure out where are we at for the average permit price for a single family home. And what we found was that while we've we were able to bring in more money over that period compared to if we hadn't. The actual average permit price stayed the same as it had from the previous 9 months before we implemented that permit price, that permit fee change. And so then I'm like, okay, so then we looked at the average permit cost per square foot. And the cost per square foot went up 10%. So what we then looked a little closer, and what we're seeing is the average square footage of a single family home has been decreasing. So from the past 9 months, and then what I did is I looked 9 months prior to that. So we're looking from September 22 to now, and then from September 22 back to December of 21. Single family home square footage, permitted square footage decreased by 300 square feet, or almost 7%. So our permit fee is a function of the size of the house and then this construction valuation data table. And that's a data table that's set by the International Code Council. And we historically have not done anything with that. We approved one in 2012 with our 2012 building code, and then we've kind of let that stay what it was to try to be consistent throughout things, because that table gets released every 6 months. So we could use the newest table every time, but now our permit fees fluctuate with everything. Well, one of the things we want to do internally is kind of explore that a little more and maybe say, hey, we should be using that more, because right now that's data's 10 years out of date. And our fees would be a decent amount different based on those new data tables. So we're going to look into that a little bit more closely. But what I wanted to show you up there is trend line and data of the average square foot over the last 20 years of house. And so remember, this is very local data. So, you maybe look at the 2007 timeframe and think, okay, that's housing recession and stuff. So there's a little bit of truth to that. But really what I would say to think about when you're looking at that is what was happening in Norwalk at that time. So, my time in the city kind of starts around 2013, leading up to around 2015, 16. We had golf course development, we had the home shows, we had all these really big development projects happening on larger lots, finishing out the Legacy, finishing out the Ridge, and all that stuff. And right around that 2018-19 timeframe, if you think back to the zonings that we've approved and that stuff, there's a lot of discussion at that time of, hey, we should do some smaller lots. We should look at doing something to try to influence the price of housing on the single family level. And so what you can see there from 2019, the size of home starts going down. And I think that's reflective of some of those decisions we made at that point in time. One thing to remember, the average home size that might seem high, that includes all space in the house. So if you have an unfinished basement in it, it still calculates that, because we need that size value for our permit calculation. So I just thought it was some interesting information on the square foot size. Not something I really would have anticipated seeing if I just would have guessed out of my head, or how's it getting smaller or bigger? Usually we think everything's getting bigger. And then this last table is just permits per year from 2003 to 2022, and include 2023 yet in there because we're only about halfway through the year. But you kind of get an idea of how that trend has gone over the years. And then just to talk a little bit about that table in context, or chart in context to our staffing levels. In 2008, so we've always done building inspections, but in 2008, we hired our current chief building official as a building inspector, and he was our first certified building inspector, Tony Straubers. And that seems to be like a reaction to what was happening in the kind of years before that. You can see an increase in some permit levels, a lot of activity going on. Probably not an assumption when we hired him on that we had just hit a housing recession and the housing bubble burst. So we get a period of kind of steady permit growth. Then 2014, Tony got promoted to our chief building official, and we hired a building inspector. 2016, we brought over a public works employee to be our part-time nuisance and code enforcement and stormwater person. And then from 2016 until 2022, basically, that nuisance code enforcement person probably spent about 60% of your time actually doing inspection, because of all of that extra growth that we had there in our permit stuff. That's what we had to do to get jobs done. We started talking internally about 2019, 2020 timeframe, hey, we might need a second inspector. Started budgeting for that in our request to you all as council. You approved that in 2022 and we hired that on. So last thing I'll leave with that is Luke and I, when we've done a lot of our projections on what growth would look like and everything, we've always tried to look back at permit data and understand that there might be some downturns and try to bake that into our projections. And we'd always kind of been, and it's kind of interesting, that didn't really happen in 2020 and 2021 like it was predicted to. But you can see here on this chart, you've got two kind of dips there starting in 2003 through 2008. But now you've got two bigger dips from 2017 to 2022. So it seems like maybe that did happen, but it didn't show up in the data that the way that we thought it would. Whereas it happened more on an upward trajectory overall. So, you know, who's to know what's going to happen in the future? But if that trend continues, then maybe we'll see a more leveling out of steady growth for the next 5 years, where we kind of hover from the 175 to 225 range before we see some more big growth go on. But
Let's do that for a while.
yeah, that'd be nice. Steady's better. All those big ups and downs are hard to plan for, but I think we set ourselves up good for that from a staffing level, and so we appreciate your guys' support in that. Last thing I'll leave you with that, again, that was all single family home permits, so that didn't include any of the commercial stuff we've done, any of the industrial stuff we've done. When we do something like Michael Foods, that's probably the equivalent of 20 to 30 building permits for a single family for the amount of work that we have to do for that. Same thing when we do a elementary school or a big remodel for the high school and those things. Those take a good chunk of time out of us as well. So, but that's a good kind of just metric to understand what's going on. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks. Ed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, we have excellent staff throughout the city. We really do. And sometimes different staff elements have opportunities to shine just by way of the nature of what comes before them. It doesn't mean that the other people aren't talented and good that weren't involved in whatever that opportunity is. But I'm really glad that you're going to do recognition, because I think this time with the court case particularly, well, day-to-day things too, that our public safety staff generally in the area of public safety is an excellence. And knowing some of those people, getting to visit with some of those people, I mean, I can really appreciate it. That doesn't mean the rest of staff isn't, and each one will have an opportunity to shine. So, you know, I just want to encourage you, when there are those opportunities, that we celebrate those opportunities, irrespective of what staff it is, right? Because I've worked for people that didn't believe in that, and I don't think that was a good thing. So anyway, thanks for doing it.
All right. Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right. Thank you. David.
I don't have anything more tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Stephanie. Jim. Oh. All right. Just a couple things. Thank you for the education. It's good education. Appreciate that. Front porch Norwalk was a lot of fun. So I got a popsicle, got a cookie, like a strawberry chocolate brownie. So, you know,
Sounds like Halloween, like to go around.
it almost is, but it's a great event, and I would encourage anybody to go along with it. The registered events that we went to were really well attended. There were quite a few people at each one of them, so I think it was a successful night. The person who organized Front Porch Norwalk, Judy Corcoran, she was our Warrior of the Year. She is under the weather, and if anybody of you would like to or would feel like you should, drop her an email. I think she would appreciate it. And lastly, I was at Norwalk Central last night watching some ball games. The lights were on and there was not very much light going outside of the field. So it was pretty impressive, the lighting that's out there. The fields were well lit, but not so much right next to it. So
Won't keep the people awake in the hotel.
What's that?
I said that won't keep the people awake.
That is true. It will not. All right. That's all I had. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Livingston, second by Reba. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same. And motion carries. Adjourn. 8:04 PM.